Okay, so as of this recording, we have not actually finished the show, and this episode will go live after the show finishes. But Battle of Fate on Disney Plus, on wherever you're getting it, uh, you know, on whatever whimsical, magical methods you are using to acquire its purview, if you will,
Mhm.
whatever you are using to scry into it. Yes.
Yes, the Black Mirror of art.
Yes, exactly. It's amazing. It's great. If you don't know what it is, it's a South Korean reality TV show that puts fate readers or diviners up against each other for various missions in which it's a reality TV show, right? They're competing with each other, seeing who's the best scryer, who's the best diviner. You got people who do saju, which is essentially Korean batsa. You have people who are doing shamanism. Most people are shamans. They're initiated into Korean shamanism, so they have their fans, their bells. For my fellow Exuba fans,
Mhm.
some of these motifs would be familiar. People in the Frightful House Discord know we love the Korean reality TV show Possessed Love. Kind of like this theme, except there is matchmaking. It's like a romance show.
Very true.
Um,
Some of our
mhm.
favorite contestants returning as well
Yeah,
from
yeah,
Possessed Love to Battle of Fates.
yeah. Hannah Choi is in as the tarot reader, and then of course there's tarot readers, and then there's a foot reader. Crazy, by the way. Love a foot reader. There's a face reader, which is scary. There's a name reader who's Christian. Just tells fortunes based on your name. And there's all kinds of like interesting things. We've been in love with it because the questions are good. There's some controversy around the show regarding, was a particular case of a person whose death was used as a demonstration. And there's also some controversy around like, are they only showing the shamans that are like getting it right, or the diviners that are getting it right, and not really showing all the people who are getting it wrong? Obviously not wanting to potentially ruin their livelihoods if their shrines depend on it. But really, there's some characters, and there's people of every age, including our age and younger. So it was really fun. We've been loving it because we've been reading along with them. It's been a little insufferable because we're getting through them so slowly because we keep hitting pause to try and divine with them to see like how many can we get, and it's been crazy.
Yeah. And they're like whoever wrote the show, like the challenges, kudos to them because these are really good questions.
Yeah, yeah. So like the judges will have the answers and they have to decide who was closest, who said the key info, and there's a preference to the person who answers first for the first round of questions because obviously if they're on the right track and the judges had these like big obvious reactions like wow, how'd they get that? Like other people will clue in just cold reading wise like okay, I get it. They're on the right track. So that will eliminate other things in their head. So the person who goes first is getting preference, at least for the first round. But there were great questions. It was like one of them was five people come up, and they were like one person out of this group was hit by lightning, and another person won the lottery. Which was which? And so the Saju readers have all their birth information, so they're quickly doing the charts to see like who has a likelihood for something as insane as a lottery ticket, and who has something as crazy as potentially a lightning strike. And you have people who are talking to their spirits, talking to their deities. It's always interesting when the shamans, some of them have spirits that just gave up and are tired of the show and are like kind of exhausted from answering those questions and think it's a little petty. And so they just neglect to answer. But then you have other ones who are like getting competitive. And you got that one, Key. You actually nailed that question.
Yeah.
You turned to me and you were like, that guy smells like lightning. And it was right.
Yeah, people who have been struck by lightning smell a particular way. I don't know how to explain.
Well, that's because your ancestors were chased by ball lightning.
Yeah, it's true. It's a epigenetic trauma.
Mhm. Yeah. Multiple times, yeah. And then there were questions like, this is an address, like scry its location. What is it? Is it a hospital? Is it a police station? Is it a school? Like, is it a house? What is it? Or like, what is the cause of this person's death? Was definitely a common one. These two people were together and they broke up. Do they want to get back together? If so, which one? And if not, is it both or is it only one? There was a really fun question that was like, this person has had certain surgeries. What surgeries were they? And to see like can you feel the effects in your body? Are you able to scry with tarot and figure it out? Or another one was like, what is this person's occupation based on their baby photo? And some people were like, oh no, I can't really. It's hard to read a baby photo. And other people were like, hold on, no, I'm getting this. I'm getting their fate. It was just awesome. And like the answer was like very unexpected in terms of the sport. And then another person was a DJ. It's fun stuff. Like it was really good. Eventually they paired them together and had to read each other to eliminate another half of the contestants and see who gives the most accurate reading to another reader. And now the part where we're on is to do team challenges, where like 11 people come forward, and it's just like, okay, out of these 11, five of them are billionaires and one. So
Mhm.
which one are they? And it's just like you're doing everything you can to like figure like narrow it down. You have people going up to them and like checking their hands, reading their aura, like seeing if their wealth deities will possess them lightly entranced in front of them to signal that this is the person. People are like begging their gods to give answers. It's amazing. I highly recommend it because it's such good questions. They're actually well structured to get an answer for this kind of show. And
Mhm.
I also was moved to tears multiple times by some of the stories of the people who were involved, and and the loneliness that they feel as spirit workers. It's I teared up quite a few times.
Yeah, even same. Like there was you know the one, but one of the particular like 1v1s between two shamans
Mhm.
when they were like, "Oh, this is when the deities came to you and this is when they took you and like this is what has happened in your life as a result." And like when they open up it's like, "Oh fuck, relatable."
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, it's great. Please go watch it. Join our Patreon Discord where we talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come stuff the ballot box in our book club where we can talk about this more.
Yes. Be not alarmed at the frightful howls which you may hear. It's Svika and bringing about results key.
That's right. Today we are talking about how to build workings out of divining, how to go onto the battle of fates and then win such a battle.
I love that.
And speaking of bringing about results, we need results against the demiurge. So remember to check us out at patreon.com/the Freckle House. We have a bonus episode every month curated by and just for our patrons, a Discord server where you can come talk about Battle of Fates.
Among other things.
We also have a monthly live occult book club where we can discuss a text or a TV show of your choosing. We have show notes for every episode, and we have a whole tier for monthly group spell work from us on your behalf.
Also, remember to give us a like, rating, and review on Spotify, iTunes, or you may be listening to us. It helps us fight the demiurge of the algorithm. It helps us gather a collective of incredible sorcerers and diviners who can pray to a beautiful glowing moon orb in the center of a incredibly elaborately constructed set,
Mhm.
and gather our chi.
Very true. And as we gather our chi, we got to use that somehow. So come check out our services. I offer personalized coaching in magic and mediumship, sorcery for hire readings, where right now I'm doing a discount. So if you've been looking at the price point, it is now lower. And custom talismans, oils, tools, anything you name it, can figure something out.
Yeah, very generous of you actually for a little Lent discount happening for the good gentle creatures of this world.
Very true. Yeah, 33% off readings for the rest of Lent. So come check that out. Also, Sphynga offers bulk and Fob readings. She is awesome.
Okay, thank you.
And both of us offer occasional limited occult wares over on withcunningcommand.com.
I just put out a really a trend I'm really proud of with the White She Wolf Belavutsa. It's for shapeshifting, it's for taking on a wolf form. In spirit flight, it's for glamours, it's for protection against night hags and ogres and all kinds of things. If there's still some left in stock, there's only 10 total, and I'm intended it to be quite limited. So it's not really a charm for everyone. There's a need to be proficient in spirit flight, or at least in the basics of it, like, if you were going to have one. If there's some left, check it out with command.com. That's where they are.
Hey, if any of that sounds appealing to you, these are not to be missed.
Thank you. And lastly, hit us up on social media. I'm at Dragon Cunning, and Key is at barnowl.key. So the topic. This one was commonly requested by quite a few different patrons. We're trying to slowly chip away at our log of topics people want. Our patrons have to suggest in the server, and we've been keeping a list of them, and trying to pick one at a time, as it were, when the time is right. But really, this one has been one of the most requested, which is not often at times in private. Actually, it's been and in the Q&As. So this is really, how do you move from just divining on a situation, deriving workings, deriving not just advice, but deriving like rituals to do from your divinations, whether it's tarot, Lenormand, in my case, beans, geomancy, and all that kind of stuff. Basically, what are some kind of main philosophical principles, and how can this be actionable with spirits?
Yeah, absolutely. And as many of you who listen along and have talked to us about these things before know, with many of yourselves also being spiritual professionals, like this is one of those things that takes a lot of practice to get a feel for. And each of us is going to have our own sort of language that we work out with our spirits over time, traditions of ways of working and corpuses of knowledge to draw on that inform these things. But at the end of the day, we are really just doing a reading like any other reading, talking about, what is the advice? And does it come out as a working? Does it come out as a change of behavior? Does it come out as a change of perspective? All these things are possible. So just to drill into, really the first part of this, I think it's going to be a fruitful exploration, just kind of a peek behind the curtain for a lot of people who might not be familiar.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that I actually incorporate in my own practice in terms of like client reading quite often, which is I will ask, is there a working this person should be doing? We're both trained in Karisha reading in Kimana Angola. And so part of that training and inheritance will color the rest of our divination in terms of like how you derive a working, how these things can may manifest and so on. And just certainly other forms of divination that directly assign workings just based on the fall that comes. But for us, this is something that, well, that kind of style of nation drawn from ATRs is definitely an influence. It's really comes out even way before then. And it's something these things will like cross pollinate obviously because you work in multiple traditions, but like truly every system of divination, every tradition that can be practiced will have its own ways of doing this. And probably if you have a teacher, you've been taught this already. But what we're hoping to kind of go over today is really just what are some ways that folks listening right now, if they struggle with this a little bit, or if they're looking for a way to refine it to make sure that the kind of workings that they're prescribed to them are more concrete, they include more details, and you have your spirits in some ways like backing you and saying like, yes, I agree to this, I consent to this. This is what I'm promising will be sufficient, and this is the offering or the work or the material I need to power this to make sure it is going to work, and here's the contingency plan. So you feel ready to go ahead and actually not just be like, okay, there's an issue here, but like, what can I do about it in very precise terms?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think it's, important to mention that just like you said, this does come from everywhere. Like every system can and does like produce results like this. Really, it just comes with that practice and building up that idiosyncratic language with your own spirits that you can actually call on to enact these workings, as opposed to other corpuses and ritual technologies that might otherwise be built in. So I guess just to jump right into things, really this reading is like any other reading. When the advice comes out, there's a whole matrix of things that can happen, especially if the reading itself is bringing in energy of a problem that you're identifying, if you're capturing a portion or of the essence of the problem, or you're in communion with now a spirit that is creating a problem on someone and we have to deal with that thing. So a lot of the structuring of this, at least for me, comes first by asking that question is, have we captured something here? And certain systems do this kind of more readily or folklorically than others. Like I know playing cards are extremely common for this in kind of my context, where really cheap decks will be taken, burned, manipulated, used in other workings just as a result of their fall. And I know this is something that you've mentioned, talked about with beans as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like the oft repeated example of if it's a love reading and the beans are very favorable, I would give them to the client to cook and feed to their lover or their beloved. And if it's like a financial reading that's really good, I would give them to them to grow them and to incorporate them further. If it's a really, if it's a curse reading and it's like, yes, you are cursed or is the evil eye on you, I would make sure the client doesn't touch them and I would burn them in a cemetery as like a beginning. It won't remove it, but it will capture some of it because the tools of your divination will always capture some aspect of the essence of the question, which is why we often cleanse them or reset them in some way, or in certain cases, even sacrifice the entire deck if it's something that is very cheap to change. I wouldn't do that with your fancy tarot cards that like were really nice art and you obviously really love it. Like if it's a cheap playing card deck, that's one thing. Especially if you could incorporate them in readings. Like key, I always see you like if you're doing something and it's like you're doing playing cards and it's really good and the subject of the matter is there, you might take the querent and the key thing that they want and put that in spell immediately for them if it's a client that's looking for spell work from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if on any given day, if I'm meeting with a client who's like, "Hey, I want a new job. What's going on?" And all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh, here is every card in the deck that means work and money." All of those are getting folded up around different petitions, bundles of herbs, all sorts of things, and just handed to the person on the spot. And I really like systems that can do that. Unfortunately, Lenormand decks are a little pricier these days, but were they not, I'd be doing that in a heartbeat.
I think that's the thing too with the notion of capturing before we get into something else is just that
Mhm.
like almost all my charms, because the one I just put out, have beans in them from the initial 41 that approved the recipe. It's basically a way to tell the spirits, like, hey, you had your chance to debate, you had your chance to quibble, you had your chance to change everything, and I would have listened. But you've agreed to this. You're saying this is complete. You're saying this will do the thing that it's told to do. It will have the effect that is being enchanted into it. Therefore, ensure that it is that way. It's a seal in that way.
Mhm.
So the 41 will be distributed between however many are made.
Yeah, it's a great piece of insurance technology. Just as that token of that pact.
Hmm.
Love it. And I think something with that is like when we are using the materia of the reading, like, the beans, the cards, whatever it may be, when we really get into the mechanics of the reading and this kind of blends into that Venn diagram intersection of like, are you reading, are you working on the person? Having techniques to, if something is coming, if something is diagnosed, like very intentionally capture that thing as opposed to just the byproduct of the divination of capturing it to, even further pull something off. Like if I am suddenly getting a reading of, oh fuck, this person is actually cursed, now their shit is on me. So, and it's also on my tools. So what do we do about that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It doesn't mean sacrifice at all. It does mean having some kind of protection in place or having some kind of method of cleansing your tools and
Mhm.
having backups too. But I think that's you made a really good question. You made a really good point earlier, which was if when it comes to deriving workings, it's really just like asking for anything else, namely advice. Except this time the question is geared towards what is actionable, given that this is the situation. Let's say your reading is revealing that there's trouble coming. You're going to experience some difficult money flow in the next, let's say, 4 months and it's time to save. It's time to specifically save more than you normally would. Like this is the time where maybe cut back on the little extra sweet treats and things that we, kind of waste our $7 on. What was that mean? That was like I don't know how many more $12 purchases I have left in me. Uh,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So basically, like whatever it is, let's say it's the advice is just save. You might be like, okay, well, what can I do? Your next question might be like, okay, what can I do to either prevent as much as possible or make sure that I'm gaining as much money as possible that I can in this period? Okay, I agree. I will save. That's the general advice. But what can I also do to secure the fertility of my money in that way? But especially when you don't like the reading outcome, it's like, okay, well, that's fine. But what can I do to make sure that my spirits are deriving or working for me that at the very least I can do something with? And it's okay if the answer is nothing terribly important magical to do, just do the mundane thing. Like right now,
Mhm.
just focus on that. Your mental hygiene has to be there. Dillying and dallying around magic might actually kind of distract you. One of my teachers actually, I was talking to him about some anti-gossip work, and I asked him like, "Oh, would you use like a pig's tongue or a beef tongue for this?" And he told me that where he lives, those are actually very expensive. It's very hard to get those cuts. For me, it's actually quite easy to get them because I live next to a major Chinese supermarket, so like they just have access to all the specific cuts very quickly. And he was like, "Well, think about it this way. Let's say the tongue is worth, $50 where I am. Is the person gossiping? worth $50. And it blew my mind because I was thinking like, oh my God, you're right. Like he's like, it's probably worth maybe like a piece of gum and a prayer card. Shut up a little bit. But like it's not necessarily worth $50. And you got to think about it that way. Like if you're told like keep your money safe and save, and you're like begging your spirits for working to increase your money, like they're not going to be like, "Oh, you're just going to go buy a bunch of candles." Like you can ask with the things I have in my house right now that I already purchased, and the things that I can gather at low cost, meaning like I'm trading a coin for some dirt at a cemetery, that kind of thing. What can I do? So you could always even start the question by narrowing the scope and saying, "Hey, this is this because of what you told me. I am looking to now do something to avert this misfortune or to maximize my fortune." If you're saying you're entering a period of huge fertility and money, and you can really capitalize on that, great. Give me some insight into what I should invest my interest in. Is it just my regular job? Is it a side business? Is it switching jobs? Let me know what that is. And once you know, okay, great. What can I do to secure that?
Yeah, totally. You make a really good point with a lot of these examples. It's always, some mundane action backed up with like support. Um, at least in most cases where it's like, how many $12 purchases I got left? Not that many. So I'm gonna not make the $12 purchases right now, but I'm also going to, you know, anchor that by putting a bunch of roots that I have around that have, kind of spiky that grab onto things like the tendrils of things and put those in my wallet. That way, like everything's anchored, nothing's flying out, patch up all the holes in my clothes and then maybe do something of like, get the cash box working. Like, have I burned some candles on that in a while? And just kind of thinking about it all in this way. Or, if someone doesn't already have one, like I'm even thinking of a recent example where someone was asking about like a way to keep some money, like
Mhm.
this kind of treadmilling situation where like money's coming in, money's really good, but also like random other expenses keep popping up. It's like, okay, well, we need to make a storehouse of wealth because in the divination it's leaking. So let's patch these things up. And that comes in, certain forms that I won't get into for the privacy, but kind of thinking about it in that way where in addition to the cards in front of you, if you're identifying the problem as the magician, you can also use your intuition or the spirit mediumship or whatever to be like, oh, you're in the poetics of this. This is what solves your problem. Are you having this problem because your spirits are tired? Okay, give them some shoes. Go offer a pair of sandals. Not to eczema post too hard.
That was the close chant. Like when she's summoning the ghost, and she's just like, "Yeah, if you're too thirsty to come respond to my summons, take 3 sips of water and come anyway. If you don't have good enough shoes to walk the distance to respond to my summons, put on these wooden sandals or like these, broken sandals and come anyway."
And really like the mediumship, I guess, of like what is the ideal solution here. Yes, it's based in knowledge of recipe. It's based in folklore of and just my own experience, my teacher's experiences, friends' experiences of, hey, what fixed this problem when you ran into it? And then pulling on that, but ultimately just getting into the kind of mythopoetics of it and being like, oh, what's the cunning solution to this? And then figuring it out. Or another technique employed, since you have some of the essence of the problem captured there, you can go very like feeding your demons with it and just start talking to the problem and scrying, the spirit of the situation, being like, what do you need to go away? And then if that answer is suddenly, blue candle with the Jupiter powder in it on a Thursday, but in a solar hour because we're going for success. And then at the end of it, you take all the glass, you fill it with flowers, and then you hang that bouquet somewhere in like a cemetery on the grave of a wealthy person. It's like, okay, great. There's a good working.
Yeah, and I think even what you were saying about mediumship, right? Yes, this assumes a certain level of mediumship. This assumes that you're going to be able to communicate with your spirits and receive information from them. I always remind my clients that if you hear me say something like, "I made this recipe that my spirits gave me," when you hear that, it sounds and maybe implies on some level that the spirit told to me the way that I'm speaking now, that it was an oral recitation that I received and I wrote down everything and I kept it there. But really what I mean by and what I could mean potentially if I say a spirit gave it to me was that yes, some of it was I heard things and it was an oral recitation. Some of it were visions. Some of it were dreams that I checked later on with divination to see if that was relevant. Some of it were flurries of information and experiences and sudden, like almost like downloads of knowledge, like inserted into my mind that was not there before and did not originate or arise from within me. And some of it was omens, like just random auguries and omens. And it may be some of these or none of these or all of these. And ultimately and it may not have been received at the same point. Like sometimes it is, it's like a marathon I'm divining and the spirit gives me like a whole list. Sometimes it's I receive one just purely through psychism, like purely through spirit perception. And then I
Mhm.
check it over several sessions to really get it approved. Sometimes the spirit deliberately takes their time to give me the recipe, meaning like they give me a piece of it over each season. So there's a version of it that arises in spring and summer and fall and winter. And sometimes it's purely oniric. It comes through dreams and I have to really sit with it for a while to even get it. So I would say that with regards to just spirit work in general, don't discourage yourself if you're not receiving it just as like a stream of consciousness that you then verify with divination. It could come in many forms. And really the divination is there to prove it and to get a confirmation from the spirit, like, yes, you heard me correctly, you interpreted correctly, I agree with this recipe. And recipe meaning not just for like a powder or like an incense or something. It could just be like a recipe for a working. And so with this, really, yes, that there is a certain level of mediumship that's required, but spirits can also make things obvious in many other ways. And like he was saying, there's also formulas. Like if you are not yet at a level with your spirits where you're comfortable receiving and kind of like getting a full script, as it were, in that way, where they just give you a set of instructions, what you can do is you can tell them like, hey, give me an inspiration, like inspire me. Start the working by letting it be born with the inspiration in my heart to do it. Inspire me to go to my bookshelves, pick out one of my books that have like various workings, and flip to the page that will have the thing that will help me, or at least the start of something that will help me that can I can later on build onto. You can tell them like it has to be with only things that are already in my house, or things I could gather easily because I don't have a lot of time, or it has to be something that will work with what I have because I don't have a lot of money right now. I can't be out there supplying myself, or it has to be something that I already have access to knowledge wise. Like it pulls from a bank of existing workings that are in your home because you have books that contain workings, for example. So there's a lot that you can do, even if you're a little bit less confident in your mediumship. But I would still say this is a great way to also build mediumship skills.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like, the most development and most practice I've ever gotten in my own life is really just from repetition, repetition, repetition of this exact thing, being like, "Show me something," and then just spending time with it and being in that dialogue. And then as that embodied familiarity with, "Oh, this combination of cards might flag the presence of this spirit," suddenly I'm feeling, looking at my own sensorium and being like, "Oh, suddenly all of the tells of the spirit being in the room are on me." And it's always these cards. So now we're learning back and forth and using, spirit communication to influence divination, divination to influence spirit communication, all of these things blending together, and then just spending time with it and seeing what works and what doesn't. Of different correspondences in tons of different books around there. And I'd love to see all these things in print of like, here's a, divination system, like playing cards, pointing to, like Starcassus, Professor Porterfield, like Corey Hutchinson, like all these books on playing card conjure. I'm like, yeah, this is a manual if you don't already know this to learn the system and learn workings. Like each of these, has workings incorporated with individual cards, specific combinations of cards, and that is a great jumping off point to go with. And then by no means is it limited to that set of techniques. Like recipes are there. Recipes are great. Things are informed by tradition, but ultimately none of these things are so unbelievably sacrosanct unless they are, in which case someone will tell you that they can't be changed and modified and evolve within the logic of whatever you're doing to better meet the needs of the person in front of you, or better meet the needs of the times, or better meet the needs of you and what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish. So I think kind of in that parallel development of mediumship, of divining, of working, because right away you're able to test these things out and derive new stuff like Sfinga was saying, and just want to echo my own experience of saying like, yeah, it's not always does it come like right away. It comes with, hours of sitting in front of the cards being like, okay, this and this together probably will take this shape because it took this shape the last 10 times that it did, or the last 100 times that it did. Really just following your spirit's lead and then building that up with your own experience and developing your own spirit into one that is able to work and one that is able to derive um, techniques and information.
This also helps with being careful about not over divining. I know you've mentioned it a few times in the podcast. It's also something that our mutual godfather, Tatapokan, Jesse Hathaway Diaz, is always drilling into us as students, which is don't harm your spirit bonds by asking the same questions all the time, which also harms your own mediumship ability. Don't just become control freak with divination, where you have to know every single little detail, and you can't even, go out of your house without knowing, like, how's my day going to be? Like, what's happening? Or not, don't become dependent on the tool as a crutch, as something that actually prevents you from having an authentic relationship with your spirit. At the end of the day, your spirit's spirit will talk to you without you need to divine on every little thing to see, like, did I really say that? So, like, the divination can be to check major things, such as like key parts of their identity, and also in that ways, who has the authority to divine on if the spirit's lying or not? Who's the one powering your tools? Like, who's the one giving the answer? Like, why should you believe the divination? That's where our constant harping on building a good ancestral practice is coming from, is because at the very least, if you have a strong relationship with your ancestors, you'll be able to smell what's not them, and they'll be able to give you important insight, especially if you start building a relationship with an important oracular being or spirit you really, really trust. But why should you trust them? It's because they've proven themselves. The recipes they've given you have worked. The advice they've given you has been sagacious and efficacious, and they've been consistently somebody who, while they will push against you and will certainly disagree with you if they're a good spirit, if they're a real spirit, they'll disagree with you all the time. But you can tell that their intentions are very much in line with your own goals. So I think when it comes to, like, as you were saying, noticing how to derive these things and why it's so essential, you're really looking at how do you make an actionable practice that is informed by existing traditions, that is informed by books that you read, by existing, people out there posting things that inspired you and that, you want to work with, but also allows for negotiation in your own court, allows for negotiation with local land spirits, with some substitutions that will be required because of different plants that you work with, and also just allow for your spirits to be like, I see what you're doing. This working that you have that you got out of this book is going to be great. I would like to add something to it. I would like to, like, make a slight spin on it so it can be even more efficacious for you specifically in this moment. And that pact can vary moment to moment, right? Just because in that one time, maybe you get the inspiration to use the same working, you're in the same situation. It might be a little different this time because other things have changed. So this kind of, as we get into this topic and the meat of it, really, this is all meant to supplement folks who are actively doing work for themselves to improve their lives or maybe even for others, and are just looking to get more, not necessarily a granular approach because you don't want to be so invested in the details that, again, you miss the forest for the trees. But at the very least, you're getting your spirits to agree, like, this is my recommendation, and I'm saying I think it will directly remedy the situation at hand that you've already worked with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, the hugely important thing. And just kind of in the experience of like doing work for clients and doing work for a bunch of other people, you get kind of the same problems that come to you. You get questions of love, you get questions of jobs, you get questions of money, questions of, here's a big transition point in my life. Do I go for it? Do I not go for it? All the time. So a lot of the workings might take the same shape, but in individual cases, no two things have ever been identical. Like overall, the time of taking clients, it's like something will always be fine tuned to this person, a little different. And it might be because of the idiosyncrasies of their situation, or it might just be because the spirit that I do a lot of this work with comes up to me and goes, throw some eucalyptus leaves on there. And I'm like, okay. Because isn't my business to necessarily know why those are going in. We can figure that out later. But for now, it's coming through that oracle. And then, of course, divination confirms. Says, is it a good idea to throw these in? Card comes down. Sure, let's do it.
Absolutely. I think that's why it's good to kind of, the first thing to just kind of note is sometimes the answer will be, if you ask them specifically, like, hey, I give you these cards, I give you these tools. Could you help me see a picture of what I should be doing? And it ends up being non-action. It's like do nothing, actually. Like, throwing magic at this will tilt a precarious balance that you do not wish to tilt. Your spirit's already on it. What you need to do is your energy can be dedicated best elsewhere, which is making sure that, I don't know, the resume is filled out or the
Mhm.
emails are replied to, or you're squared away with everybody that you owe responses to, that kind of thing. Let us bring in more people, but you have to not lose your existing people. Let's say if you work at a client-based industry. Um, that can show up in, in beans in certain configurations. I mean, I'm sure people who read cards, whether it's tarot or Lenormand or playing cards and so on, but a Hispaniola, you're probably thinking like, okay, I could probably envision the exact spread that will happen. So you might, what I tend to do is, well, I do have certain configurations with cards that might be like this is the spread, as it were, right? Like you're kind of thinking like Celtic cross, that kind of thing. Like this is what each card will mean. I also sometimes prefer to just kind of like keep laying them out and seeing like what's the story that's being told, and I stop when I'm done, when the sentence ends. And I read a lot for myself card wise with the traditional Wahrsagekarten, the Austrian ones from Pietnik, that we call them the Sudbinske Karte, the fate cards, or the Zyganske Karte, the gypsy cards. These are really the famous ones that are in the green cover from Pietnik that are all over Serbia and Croatia. And there are like certain spreads that I know and certain things that are recommended by even by Pantlik itself in their literature. It'll tell you like this is kind of what you can do with them. And there's certainly ones that I was taught by teachers. But when I'm doing cartomancy with these, I say as I play with them in my hands right now, really it's a sentence that I'm making. It's just like you look at what the subject is, you look at what the nouns and verbs are, and you stop when it's done, and you can be told pretty clearly like don't do anything actually. Just work on yourself. Like it'll be showing you the labor that you need to invest in is this instead. And sometimes it's actually a change of perspective. It's like the working that's being asked of you is like you need to look at it this differently because you're digging yourself into a hole. Like you are pursuing, let's say, love magic. You're trying really hard to get a lover, and you're really frustrated that no one seems to be coming. And your spirits are saying like, what's needed is a breath of fresh air because your approach is wrong, and if the right person were to come into your life, you may not be able to keep them, which would be a real tragedy. Like that person, you want to meet them in a place where you can definitely keep them. So now's the time. Instead, maybe they'll recommend some kind of wash or some kind of right to reset your mind a little bit to kind of get yourself going. Maybe they'll be like, you know what? Let's not do lever drawing right now. Let's do friend drawing. Let's do hobby drawing. Let's do get you out of the house drawing. Let's get you out there enjoying life, touching grass, like loving every second of it. Actually, Key, I was telling Maria, our mutual friend, about this. She was on the last episode about because we're both Orthodox, right? And so we're talking about some random stuff in Orthodox culture. And there was this reel, I think that my Instagram just kind of put in my face, of an Orthodox priest talking about like when he was younger and he was like, "Oh, I really want to marry, I want to have a wife," and he was talking about advice that his priest gave him where basically he was like essentially make a petition. Like he would write a long list of the qualities and the characteristics that you want her to have, and he put that everything like adventurous, curious, intelligent, a voracious reader, let's say, or he's saying stuff like, "I want her to have a personal relationship with God that's not dependent on me. Like she doesn't just pray when I'm in the room. She prays independently of me being around or anyone seeing her. She cares about it for her own sake." So let's say you made that list in your head and you replaced it with whatever is more appealing to you. Um, and at the end, when he's finished the list, his priest told him, "Now erase the title that says your wife and put your name instead, and
Hmm.
become that person." When your life is so enriched and full of just goodness, and that you've created for yourself, and that you're happy, and that you are the person that when you look at yourself, you're like, "Damn, I'm not just worth dating." Like, not that it's worth that's involved in this, you know what I mean? Like, maybe that's a poor way to phrase it, but let's say like I'm somebody that would be a blessing to date. I would invite levity and joy and security and peace and strength, and I would be someone could rely on. I'd be adventurous. I'd be curious. I'd be well read. Like I'd be fun to talk to. That kind of thing. Like that's it's not to say that like you're not worthy of love until you've met your goals. Not at all. In fact, he wasn't even suggesting that like you can't meet that person earlier. But that's the journey that will help you keep that person when you meet them, because you've already worked on yourself. And so in that way, the spirits can be like, well, maybe I actually view it as I mean, yes, some spirits will just be like, fine, whatever you want, as long as I get the offering, we'll bring it to you. And they may not necessarily care about whether or not you can keep it. But when it comes to big things like that, I always keep that clause in. I'm like, I want to keep this. Like if it's money, I want to make sure I'm keeping it. If it's like a work-life balance, I want to make sure that it stays. And that often has less to do with magic and more to do with me. Like, can I mental health wise and discipline wise and accountability wise be the kind of person that keeps these things without it running my life off track?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the biggest parts, of that I think more should do this.
Honestly, he
And
kinda ate with that one.
he did, yeah. I'm
Mm,
like, he hearing it now for even the first time, I'm like, "God damn, I gotta do
mm,
that."
mm.
Even just as an exercise of being like 10 qualities that I want in my life, let's do this. And all of
Yeah,
that can be augmented by divination, you know?
yeah. And it helps you deal with, like, changes in perspective or important things to be like, how do you protect the reading itself? Like, I know we're getting to a lot before we even get into, like, the techniques to derive some of these workings. We're gonna go into, like, how do you get, like, like, a spell or, like, a ritual or an amulet recipe. Like, we'll get into that in a second, I promise. But, like, this is I think these foundational steps are helpful in kind of retaining, me, I'm always talking about fertility, like, retaining the fertility of the magic that it brings you, like, making sure that it stays, making sure that, like, the potential for more is there. It's like about, like, protecting the reading. I had this really bad habit for a very long time where if I receive a reading that was, like, really, really cool and immediately helpful and immediately actionable and was stuff that I could do, I would immediately, like, wanna talk about it with somebody, because I'd be like, "Hey, this is great. Like, I got it. Like, I know I'm gonna do." 'Cause I'm an external processor. So, like, when I get someone like, when, my therapist gives me some good advice, when a friend and I have a great chat, like, I wanna talk about it. And on some level, Magic My Spirits feels a little bit like that. Like, I wanna talk about it. I wanna be like, "Great, hey," like, I'm gonna call Key and be like, "Guess what? My spirits gave me this recipe. I'm gonna do this. Do you have any this on any chance?" Like, I may have to buy it, like, but whatever. Like, maybe we can find it locally. Like, but I need to make this, and it'll really help. And sometimes I just wanna, like, I need to, like, get off my chest the first person who's in the room, which is often you. But sometimes it's other people, and I'll just be like, I just wanna, like, I need to externally process it to just kinda, like, put it in my mind. And I have absolutely sabotaged magic, that was or even cool opportunities, or even, like, just, like, the good things that mentors have shared with me by, like, just being excited and wanna talk about it because info dumping is genuinely my love language, like, for the better or for the worse. And in that way, I'm just like, I just wanna share something and be like, "Oh, let's talk about it. Let's, like, think about it. Let's process it together." And really I'll journal. I'll think about it. Like, I might be like, something cool came up and I'm gonna work on it for a little bit. But sometimes the way to protect the fertility of the thing that's so nascent, it's like a baby that's not even born yet. It's so fragile. Like you don't want it to miscarry, essentially, is what you need is uh secrecy, right? What you
Yeah.
need is letting that be exist between you and your spirits. Now I yap to them out loud. And I'll ask the permission, be like, "Hey, is this something where I can, like, talk about it with a friend?" And the answer is often no. And it's like, wait until it's done or wait until, it's the I would never post a picture of a working in progress, but, like, I've done the oral equivalent of that. For sure, and that's definitely been something that I've taken some pains to, like, correct in terms of, like, just catching myself when that habit forms. So, like, one of my, like, just learn from me, pieces of advice is protect the sanctity of the reading or the work that's being given to you by making sure it's even the plan to carry it out is yours. If you have a confidant, like a working partner, like somebody who you do all your magic with, it's totally you can ask your spirits like, "Hey, given this relationship, is this person with this is in the safe group of people I could discuss this with?" The answer may be yes a lot of time. It may sometimes be no, but it's good to check.
what is what is the best way to invite cross conditions and the eye onto you and all of your spirits? It's to post that open spirit vessel on the internet, you know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. People print that shit off and throw bad juju in it, and it won't be as necessarily as, the same as them putting, like, a negative powder in it in person, but it still is gonna suck. And that's why you booby trap and glamour all of your photos, people. Go back to our decoys episode.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
like
especially when you have spirits that wanna feed on the fame. Like, I have ones that'll, like, take a photo of me specifically. Like,
yeah.
I'll take it. And they have words and things with them to make sure that they're control. But really the thing that I was gonna say is that also includes protecting, like, major shifts. So, I was thinking a lot about that with, like, let's say you get fired, like, don't tell everyone you got fired. Let's say you
Yeah.
get a new job that pays really well, don't tell everyone that happened, like, tell some advice I got recently from a couple different mentors was, like, "If something great happens to you, tell people 3 months later." No one's gonna well, at least people in general will be less inclined to evil eye you out of jealousy over things that have already happened and taken place. Like, in the moment, it might invoke some frustration, if that is a problem in your field, right?
Yeah. You know, just the amount of I that can come in through jealousy or like Schadenfreude, essentially. It's
Yes,
like,
yes. Witches are the creatures of Schadenfreude.
really, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck. Because, you know, if, you know, a misfortune happens, like, not even to be deceptive, but just to protect everyone involved, like, just not really bring it up, not really talking about it, be like, hey, this kind of shitty thing happened. Keep that to like the closest people in your life. I know this is something that we talk about a lot, and advice that you gave me has been really helpful. Where it's like, just keep things a little locked down.
Dude, it's advice that I'm actively trying to implement. Like, I'm not here for telling you that I'm good at it yet, but I've definitely, like, had to tell myself, "Okay, like, keep it to, what's, like, the very, very Balkan kind of advice of, like, if something's happening, that's good or bad or whatever, like, to most people, the answer is, like, "How's your life going?" It's good. And then to your closest, closest, closest friends, the people that you really, really deeply trust and that you know have your back, the answer can be, "Actually, it's really bad," or, "Actually, it's really good." And that's the thing too, is, like, protecting that sort of thing in transition and protecting things that are careful. Like, it's why, like, don't announce, like, when you're traveling, right? The age-old adage of spirit communities. Like, don't say, like, "Oh, I'll be away from these days, and because I'm on these flights." They can say, "I'll be out of office." Absolutely. But, like, don't announce, like, what flight you're on or, like, what time your flight leaves or, like, when specifically, like, what is the day that you're leaving, what is the day you're coming back. It's, 'cause airports are awful, and they're full of, like, spirits that love to cause awful delays and accidents and weird things that can just completely screw with your luggage and everything like that. We had an episode on, like, enchanting on the go when you're traveling and, like, dealing with airport magic and stuff like that. But it's, this applies for sure. I know we were hashing a little bit, but, like, really protect the thing that you are working on, protect the magic itself, protect the plans, protect the transitions. This is actually why when Salt and I broke up, we didn't really make an announcement because we were like, "Do we still want to do the podcast together?" And the answer was like, "Yeah." "Are we still friends?" And I was like, "Yeah." It's like, "Okay, like, there's no drama, nothing bad happened. Like, we've just decided this is what's best for us, and we want to transition to another form of friendship." And then it was like, "Well, what do we do?" It's like, "Well, we don't really, like, say anything. People will have weird ideas about it, and they'll have all kinds of, like, assumptions." So, like, now people pretty much know. Like, I'm pretty sure most people have figured it out by now. But, like, it was 2 years ago, and we kept the podcast going. Like, like,
Mhm.
it's clearly that there's no drama. But that's one of those things too where, like, you have no idea the projections people put on things. Like, let's say, in the case of, like, a relationship transition, people will just assume so much and, like, think it's their business, and poke their nose in and stuff like that. It can be really weird, and it can actually harm the transition to friendship in that case. It can actually cause more pressure and more intensity to have those eyes on it. Example, it can be like, let's say you're transitioning careers. Let's say you get a really good job offer and you accepted it, but you're not transitioning roles until much later. Let's say in a few months or something like that. And if you blab to a bunch of people and stuff gets weird or tense, so it's a hard job market right now. A lot of people are getting laid off. A lot of people are really struggling financially. And so it's one of those things of like, oh shit, like now it's a lot of evil eye. Now it's a lot of discomfort. Now it's a lot of just people kind of not really wanting to be around you because you seem like you're gloating, but really just trying to explain like, hey, this big thing happened. It's good to just be like, yeah, there's a transition happening once it's done. And not really talk about it further than that. Like, maybe the reason we're talking about this so much is because we're both really learning this. But it's because I think we've been pretty good at it in some fields and others just a little naive about like who we tell things to. So it's just been good advice to be like, okay, like let's lock it down,
Mm.
tell everyone later.
Yeah, absolutely. Even kind of on the opposite end of that spectrum, like I process like deeply internally, you know. So
Mm.
the having that pendulum of like, oh, does this lead to undersharing and concealing things? And if I swing that too far back in the other direction by suddenly blabbing to everyone I know about things as an attempt to fix the former. Neither of these are good. We have to find the mean. But I think that's a really big part of that. And something you were mentioning reminded me of like what the witches are the kings and queens and regents of Schadenfreude, and the eye is going every which way at all times. There was this one Fa diviner who goes by like Vanku Jovi, who just recently was talking about a whole thing of like, oh, suddenly the Bakor, the diviner, is thrown under the bus because misfortune happens. But at the end of the day, we're human. And I think it's that classic environment of there's like added layers of stakes where if a misfortune happens in someone's life, then suddenly it's where are their spirits? Where's their magic? Where's their divination? Where they're not accurate? What the fuck happened? And it's like, guys, look at your own life. This happens to everyone. It's just kind of a weird thing. So we do what we can to remediate and move forward.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I think like with the whole thing of like just to go back to the beginning of the episode with like Battle of Fates, like all of these, shamans have traumatic, horrible things happen to them in their lives that they open up about, but really it's just it's all because of the spirits. And who, not to go full like archetype with it, but like people who have the most weird shit happen make the best healers.
Mhm.
Not to justify it or like wash it away. It's like not hunger for like better results and better things, but it's just to say like things will happen. So what do we do about it?
Yeah. And so let's get into it. Like, how do we pull these?
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of places with this to start. We mentioned already that like spirit mediumship will always lead kind of that intersection with recipe as something traditional, but not so sacrosanct that it can't be living and breathing at the same time, with the whole, metaphor of like tradition is a fire you're tending, not just ashes that you're hanging on to.
Mhm.
Having the knowledge of tradition and the enculturation and just knowing what to do such that you're not just doing rote repetition, that you're actually being like, okay, what is in front of me? Also, talking about if the divination captured something already, you can use your own cunning to start manipulating that. If it's some big problem that you've suddenly captured in the deck, distribute that deck to 52 different places, cut it apart into tiny pieces, spread it to the winds, burn it, throw the ash into the air. Or whatever analog is in dialogue with the spirit of the problem itself. What does it need? What does it want? What does it have to go away? Or what does it have too much of and needs to be remediated? So I like to start when I'm building out workings by, asking a couple questions about the structure of the problem. One that we touched on, but I really like to begin with is, are we securing or averting something that is already here? Is it already in front of us? If so, we can, grab it, manipulate it, cleanse it off, do whatever we need to do. And the divination will usually reflect that. Like coming from my own context of Lenormand, we're usually talking about cards that aren't signifying motion or arrival, but are really rigid, upright, showing the walls, boxing in the problems, showing things like linked very tightly to the querents already in the past, like the significator. And then that's giving an indication of like, okay, we need to address the problems here. Similarly, are we securing or averting something that is coming but not yet here? If there is a lot of motion in the cards, if there's a lot of movement, if things are up in the air, if there's like whirlwinds, crossroads, stuff like this, it's like, okay, we need to maybe, if the car is hurtling down the road toward us, we need to either step out of the way or we need to put something in the way. And kind of these are giving flavors of, what to do. And just, when I talk to students, I say, use the magician brain, use your magician eyes, your magician ears, like get into magic mode. If you see this problem, the mundane advice of if the car is coming at you, step out of the way first. If the hand is on the stove, take your hand off the stove first. This is all well and good, but also how are we thinking of, what makes you move faster? What makes you notice it earlier? And that's where some of this comes in.
Absolutely. I like the idea of just mapping it, but being like, is something being taken away? Is something being added? Is something being secured? Is something being averted? That's already here. That's coming, but not yet here. And for me, that also comes with. It depends on kind of the vibe. Honestly, it will be a bit of a coin flip for me, depending on how I'm personally feeling. What's the sensation I'm getting? In this stage itself, I might already get a feeling of which spirits are volunteering to do
Mhm.
the work with me. I'd be like, it's this saint, or it's this particular familiar, or it's this particular ancestor that's already coming forward. Or it may be that the spirit is just giving the advice and others are agreeing to work. Kind of like someone is doing the planning, but others are going to be contracted for the labor. And I have spirits in my court that the ones that I divine with are the ones that are kind of the planners, right? They're the ones who are like, they already are assigning tasks in the middle of the
Mhm.
divination. It's not even up to me necessarily. They'll be like, this person will do it. We just talked and they agreed. And then I check with them. But sometimes you won't necessarily get that feeling yet. What will happen instead is that you can ask, right? And even at this stage, you can be like, who here volunteers to do this work with me? Because knowing that early on is helpful because at the very least, you then have an idea of like how will they flavor the work that's going on. You'll be like,
Yeah.
okay, well, if it's a spirit that works primarily with plants, that I know it's going to be very herbal heavy. Or if it's a spirit that's very much going to be from a particular pantheon, very particular culture, they're very interested in, let's say, a lot of prayers, a lot of Christian imagery, then we know kind of how it's going to go. We know it's going to draw on a particular, let's say, heritage of your ancestors and so on. Or if in our case, let's say, or in my case, let's say there's a spirit that's coming forth that's deeply like planetary, and they're like the planet, like I've had this happen for clients where I'm just like, oh, it's like a court case. Like, what are you working for this? And they're like, oh, I'm working in like Jupiter. And I'm like, oh, you got to do your Venusian stuff. Actually, everything is relationships. Everything, they're not just like love or romantic or whatever. Like people kind of overblow Venus that way, but Venus is also production, right? Venus is how things are produced in the minds of people, right? You know how things are, like babies are produced, how things are produced in a factory, right? You know, so
Mhm.
what is being produced here? Like, how are we swaying the judge? How are we swaying the other lawyer? How are we swaying the jury? Like, what does each person need to be seduced in this way into fertility, into production, into producing the answer and the result that you want? And so Venus can be very strong this way, right? So like if I have a very Venusian spirit volunteering for a task, like I have to check, is it one of my Tuba Veneris spirits? Is it one of those six? Is it one of my Aphroditean nymphs? Is it one of the planetary spirits that I've worked with and made contact with over the years? Like who is showing, and that will already give me a hint. Okay, now I can narrow it down in my head because I'm not just defining this giant primordial soup of anything goes. I know if I'm talking to the spirit, the workings are going to look a little bit like this. It's going to draw on this tradition, and I can already narrow down. I already know what their favorite herbs are. I already know what their favorite materia is. I already have an idea what things they'll want. I already kind of have a vague understanding of, or even a more sophisticated understanding of how they work and what they'll do and where they'll want me to go. And so that already helps narrow your mind a little bit. Kind of focus your faculties to now looking at the cards in front of you. Let's just keep using cartomancy as an example and being like, oh, I see. You want me to look at the wherever it's green in the cards, like verdant green in the pictures of the cards is telling me pay attention to here. Like the fertility is here. Pay these positions, these places. Is our figures bathing themselves? Are figures is there a lot of water? Are you getting cards that are assigned water? Let's say like they have a water sign ruling them zodiac wise. Okay, so it's gonna be very emotional. Maybe it involves washing, maybe it involves bathing, maybe it involves collecting water. Yeah, and your spirits will be like, yes, that's what I mean, or like, no, 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 that's too metaphorical. I mean it more literally. You're just doing this. You're cleansing the thing. It's like, okay, great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like that you mentioned like the whole who's in the room thing. Because I think this is a really huge thing, even just for, yeah, like you said, it's a great way just to shape the workings already of being like, oh, grandma who solves every problem with the rosaries in the room. I'm probably going to tell this person you need to be doing these set of prayers, or I'm going to do them on your behalf, and we'll figure this out. Um, Versus, if deep woodland herbalist is here, then it's going to be herbs. So I think that's like a really amazing place to start. So I'm glad you bring that up. I think too, like you're saying with whatever mediums that you're divining with, be it cards or whatever else, building up your symbol set with time of, okay, what of these are what elements? Lenormand is very nice because every card is one of four suits. The ascriptions of that I will beef with constantly. And if you have come to me to learn Lenormand, then my beef with this. But it's a great place to start. Same with tarot, like you mentioned, zodiacal, elemental, like so much ink has been spilled about correspondences of all these different cards and what they mean. So pulling on that and using these things even to say, what is the solution? What's the problem? So if you're checking for the problem in the divination to kind of build it out, looking for what's causing it will usually give you a good idea of the solution. If the problem's coming from ancestors, like if this person has, some disruption in their own dead where they're out of alignment with them, or there's an ancestor who has they're providing some sort of affliction to the person through like a vampirism or that sort of situation. If the ancestors just aren't agreeing, like if they're like, no, you need to not be going after this promotion that you're going to get dumped from in a couple months if you're not stable enough. So just stay here's stability. Like don't move. You have what you need. So shaping this working to then be like, oh, what do I know that answers this question? Let's start offering a bunch of foods. Let's start doing mediumship stuff. Let's do offerings to, these kind of psychopomps on my behalf to move things around, shuffle the dead out of the way and, maybe give them certain, charm bundles to keep on their ancestral shrines. Just feel like, hey, let's keep this here just until this problem's smoothed over to temper the influence of what's going on. Same deal kind of if you notice that there is a spirit in there or be a guide, a familiar or something that is really disagreeing, we can sit down and be in dialogue with that spirit in kind of the more mundane side of that is, I don't know, have you considered talking to the thing that's causing the problem? But, if something's really wilding out, we can start doing workings that manipulate all the flow of these things. If something's mad, let's cool it down. If something is sluggish and kind of debilitated, let's heal it. Let's raise it up. Let's nourish it. If, something is fighting you actively, let's give it something else to do. If it's a warrior spirit, if it's turning on your own life because something is messed up, the identification of these things shape the workings too.
Or even like the warrior spirit doesn't have a war to fight,
Yeah.
and now it's trying to find a war.
Yeah, absolutely. That war is your workplace, then fuck, let's figure this out real quick.
Mhm,
And then I think too, if you're running into things like, oh, this person actually has like a cross condition, they have like a grief that is becoming a spirit that is latching onto them. They have the eye, they have, some sort of weird fate, like bad luck or misfortune just in this time period. Going back to that question, are we in deficit? Are we in abundance? What's causing this? Is there, too much grief? Let's do healing. Let's put this thing to rest. Let's, do have like a grieving practice. Let's do cut and clear, that type of thing. Pulling on these kind of technique sets that through time and experience we build up as capable of addressing any given problem. And I think it's also worth mentioning that, a lot of people will come to readings being like, is this a curse? Very rarely is it ever a curse.
mhm.
So, very rarely is it ever like, "Oh, you were in, like, a full-on, like, fucking witch war with someone, so we gotta fight." But, that has its own techniques too. If you see that, then now we're doing, are we cleansing this person? Are they hiring us to do, like, counter cursing? Are we now suddenly beefing with someone? Um, so, it's all part of building that out. Something, though, that is really helpful they were mentioning, like, is your solution also if you're really in the flow with your spirits and you really know your oracle, is the solution directly represented in the medium in front of you?
Mhm.
If there's an abundance of water, now we might be looking at let's make a bath. If there is, an abundance of fire, it's like, okay, let's maybe start, you know, doing some like really robust cleansings. Like let's heat things up. Let's do some fighting. Let's do, whatever it may be. If there's too much air, okay, incense, maybe. Let's see. And kind of matching things up like that, where
Yeah.
every piece of information in front of you, it's, if we're following that worldview, it's there for a reason. Some symbol here. So leaning into that mediumship, leaning into, okay, what's weird about this is kind of a way that I will talk to Lenormand students. If we pull like a line of 5 cards, I'm like, okay, central theme, what is it here? Could be the card in the middle, or what's going on with all 5. If all 5 of these are hearts, it's probably something to look at. Maybe we need to consider more cartomantic ascriptions here of like suddenly do we need to be talking about love? Do we need to be boosting attraction? Do we need to be boosting allure, like sensuality, that type of thing? And pulling on additional symbol sets that are still coherent to what you're doing in front of you. Like, I'm certainly guilty of slamming like 5, 6, 7 things together just because of who my spirits are and seeing how it works is part of the fun. But really drilling down and saying the answer's here.
Mhm.
Where is it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally. I think, each kind of divination style will have its own ways. Is it primarily a way that's checking things for you? Is it a way that's revealing things based on its own patterns, giving you hints based on the physical omens that are falling within the reading? And some like systems like geomancy, for example, will get very granular with it. It will actually like really get into the nitty gritty of it, which is great. Our friend Dr. Al Cummins has a lot of courses that he's put out on how to actually derive like different kinds of workings from geomancy, including ones for healing, ones for protection, just from the figures themselves as well as from the charts that you make with them. So, like, he's an example of someone who does a lot of work to actually like show specifically within geomancy, like how this can be done on a level where you can start to recognize these patterns. You can the mediumship will build through the recognition, but there's also ways to derive it just from the system. Like the system has its own way of just giving these things to you that he's largely explored and in many ways created. And they've been superbly influential for a lot of people and really, really helpful. So always highly recommend his stuff to check out. But I think with the kind of other ways of going through what it is to kind of understand what you're supposed to be trying to tell you in terms of workings is like I love to look at like in terms of like if your system of divination has like elemental correspondences or kingdom correspondences or ways that it shows kind of domains where sorcery can take place. Let's say like tarot, you're looking at like a lot of fire versus a lot of air, that kind of thing. Fantasy as well, like lots of air versus lots of water, that kind of stuff. Like you're already getting a picture. I was recently reminded by a mentor, take a step back, like breathe, especially when you're reading for yourself, because you already know yourself. You already know your spirits. You already have good, like, I had a reading where one of my teachers asked me to read for him, for myself, really, but like he was going to evaluate it. And these two cards showed up, and they're both, there's a tarot for the record, and they're both major arcana. And I was like, okay, like these two cards specifically in combination for me flagged this one spirit in my court. And I read everything based on that spirit showing up. And then he was like, "Okay, that's great, and I actually agree with your interpretation. Like, I genuinely think that you're on the money, but take a step back for a second. Just let your eyes kind of blur and look at the whole reading. Like, what does it actually say if you didn't know you had that spirit? If you were a client for yourself and you didn't know?" And I was like, "Well, if that's, I guess it would be this card would mean this, and that card would mean that, and to put them together, and this is what's happening." And then he's like, "Okay, great. Now read the rest of the reading that way." It's like, "Okay, well then it tells a story of me having this situation happen, and this comes in, and then that occurs, and then this person arrives." And he's like, "Right. So if you know that's the zodiac sign, and you know there's this prominent person in your life that has a zodiac sign that fits this exact description, that fills this office for you physically in the way that you're drawn to that spirit, and you know that spirit fulfills a similar office for you in the spirit world. What is it actually saying?" And it's like, "Oh, it's about them." It's like, I'm not disputing that it's also about your spirit, but I'm saying a good reader can pull 5 readings out of one, and they're all true. And it's also saying this thing is happening. And it was true, and it was on the money, exactly. And I wouldn't have thought of that had I not taken that step back. And so in that way, when the spirits are coming and you're like, "Okay, I have an idea, the spirits like doing their thing," great. But also don't forget the raw divination skill of the system that you practiced. Like look back and be like, could it also mean something else? And also when it comes to like a working, is my mind defaulting to what I like to do? What is easy or what is aesthetically pleasing to me? What if the spirits are recommending literally just like certain mundane actions and something very simple? Like when your spirits just tell you like go shut out a plate and break it, like just scream into it everything that you hate and break it out of crossroads and you're done. And you're like, word, I don't okay. But like that's what they're asking for. And it's cards that are about breaking things, and it's cards that look like where the discs or the coins or the pentacles look like plates. And sometimes it's just like, okay, great. Like now what? It's like, okay, well, this is literally just telling you go clean your house. And once you're done cleaning your house, do something for yourself, and once you're done doing that, go to work. Like, go
Yeah.
fill out all the things that you need to fill out, like a reset. And it's like, "Okay." And what do I do magically? It's just like, I don't know, put a glass of water with a camphor block inside and some scissors under your bed so you sleep better. Like, okay. Like, it can be
Yeah.
that. It can be that simple, and it's just good to just kind of like, "Okay, let me take a step back and have an idea of what's happening here." And don't forget that as much as spirits will obviously influence the trance and divination, don't forget to just look at what does it mean on its own, on its face. Like, what is the raw story being told here? Because it doesn't mean that you're not listening to your spirits too. They often might guide you to the raw meaning too. But when you're reading for yourself, it's just so complicated because you already come with so many assumptions. So this is specifically something to think of like, okay, if all 5 interpretations have worth, having all 5 of them is a good thing. And then you can narrow from there of like, okay, now what is being recommended? As a working specifically.
Mhm.
And it may emerge out of a synthesis of them. It happens all the time for me to beings. Let's say there's a 2 in the hand over here, and there's a 1 in issues with affairs, and there's a 4 in issues in income, and like, okay, that tells me something. I already know what that means exactly. Like, oh, I look at the purchase, I look at the expenses. Like, yep, there we go. The money is flowing, and you're overburdened by too many deaths. And there's news, like good news, coming from your friends or people that you're in close communication with financially, the people who know your stuff. But like, it might be a recommendation, it might be like an introduction to somebody that you need, but it's not going to come fast enough. You're drowning in the mutability. Like every time you get a little bit of money in, it immediately covers a debt, and new debt comes. This is going to require like a pretty serious overhaul. Magically, it's going to require a lot of magical work. What happens? And then sometimes I look at the glyphs or like I look at the omens, and it's just like, but yeah. And then the recommendation was okay, big overhaul, major overhaul using things you already have, so you don't spend more money.
Yeah, totally.
And then that leads into a second chart, right? So like the diagnosis was one, and the first chart told me to style the working. The second chart's gonna tell me what it involves, and the third chart's gonna tell me the disposal. How do I get rid of it? What happens in the next 3 months? Like how do I keep it going?
Yeah, absolutely. With that style too, I really like that. Pull multiple charts. Like, get more information if you need it. Like, so much in Lenormand, like, all of my consultations kinda begin in that, like, Belgian cross style. where I'm like, okay, here is the picture of the world in front of me. If I need to figure out more information, I'll pull one of those cards over as a significator. Okay, new reading. Talk to me about this. And then it builds out that world again. And you kind of keep cycling through until eventually something will click. And it's like, oh, there's the answer. Beautiful. And it's kind of that familiarity, like you were saying, with like, you know, certain numbers in certain boxes, you're going to automatically know what those mean in combination. As you become really versed in kind of this vernacular and moving toward this developing of workings strategy of reading, then these things just come faster and faster, you know. I was even thinking today, like I did a reading for someone shortly before we recorded, and a certain combination of cards fell for the sixth time in a divination in the past like maybe week and a half for different querents. And I was like, what? What does this keep coming up? And every time it's the same advice and every time it's resonating for the person. So now I'm like, okay, if this specific combination comes up, it means give this advice. It evolves in that way, such that, you know, if I create something, if I create a working and it really hits, I'm like, okay, now that combination of cards, if I'm seeing these hints, if I'm seeing these things come forward, time to do that working again. Or, you know, if I see this combination of cards, time to give that advice again. And it's this ever evolving toolkit of knowledge of techniques and things that you can do that should be feeding back and forth between you, your spirits, your divining, and how you're using these things in communication with each other.
Absolutely. And let's run down maybe a list of things to check since we're talking about like what are some of the things you can like immediately kind of like get off your list.
I guess you know, mentioned some of it already, but figuring out what's causing the problem, having a really good handle on like what is the actual origin of this.
What's the root? Yeah, is it ancestral? Is it a cross condition like you were saying? Is it the eye? Is it your own spirits? Is it ambient stuff in the spirit world that you picked up? Is it a curse? Is it just shit life syndrome? Is it just like a bad economy? Nothing personal, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I also I check, is it me? Like
Yeah.
I will have a significator. I guess we're just doing cards today, but like I will have a significator, right, that represents me, and I'll check like if it's me, it'll be really obvious. But also look like, is it specific someone? Is it like literally like is it that court card, or is it a important major arcana whose zodiacal symbol it's associated with is believe this person in a really obvious way. Now that I'm for the first time in my life like really formally studying tarot as opposed to just kind of like playing around with it, it's been really interesting to be like, oh my god, it's so clear and blunt when you actually like really are learning how to read properly, because otherwise it's like people can be so wishy-washy with it. I think it has a bad reputation because of that, but like damn, it can be so nuclear like blunt once you like take that step back and are like, oh my god, this is literally what it's saying. But yeah, it's the same as any other karmancy, right? But I think the thing too is like, okay, is it me? In that case, like that's sometimes the best and the worst thing to get, because you're like, "Okay, great, it's all in my control." Oh, wait, no, it's all in my control, and I have so many habits that are ingrained in me, like, what do I do?
Yeah. And you know, I find especially useful if it's coming out like, oh, the problem is me. I'm like, on one hand, great, let's figure that out. And kind of begin that evaluation and really as the next layer, the next thing to check. Is there something in abundance or is there something in deficit going on?
Mm,
Like, just to use an example from my own life, I like bite my nails pretty badly
mhm,
and got, you know, I do a reading of like, okay, what do I do to stop this? And it's like, oh, you have, you know, an abundance of fire in your extremities. It's like, okay, cool. Let's now do some grounding practices to like move that fire away. Let's maybe be cooling off my limbs. And then that way, you know, this isn't happening so much and we move forward from there. Same goes for any other situation where if there is like an abundance of sorrow after, let's say someone goes through a really messy breakup and nothing is going right for them, and it comes out in the divination that they have an abundance of sorrow. Or, you know, conversely, if it's raised as like they have an absence of joy, then we know how to tailor those workings. Really, that sounds similar, but these are two different workings to me. You know, if we need to raise joy, then we're going to go sweetness route, new opportunities, maybe being like, okay, let's reinvigorate your life in the way that you're pursuing hobbies, go do something you like, go up, be out in the world. If there's an abundance of sadness, okay, we need to maybe start treating this a bit more exorcistically. We need to remove something that has now been given a life that is more than its own. Same goes for, if you have abundance of energy, but that energy is going in a self-destructive pattern, we need to lower that down. Whereas if you have a deficit of energy and that's leading to similar inaction and self-destruction and deadlines just slipping by, then okay, we can address that in different ways too. So that's kind of where I look next. Like you were mentioning with all this, there are specific tells. Like if suddenly every card in front of you is one suit, that's probably an abundance of something. If the reading has none of a suit, here's an absence of something. If there is every card that signifies a particular zodiac sign is on the table in front of you, that's maybe something. If every card that denotes movement is on the table in front of you, in like a Lenormand context, that's something. And so, really drilling down in that way.
Mhm.
And then another thing we've kind of already touched on, but something I'll be looking for next is there a specific combination of cards here that's flagging the presence of a spirit of mine? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if I know that in Letterman, for example, boat and fish is a particular fisherman spirit that I talk to, and suddenly I'm smelling, salty air and like fermented fish. I'm like, oh, hey, what's up, dude? Like, here's a shot of something. Like, let's come forward and talk about this problem. Kind of looking for that tell of, okay, who's here to help? We can then go more into the mediumship route and allow that spirit to really come through, start taking over the oracle, giving different proclamations. Or on the flip side of that, if this person in front of me is coming like, oh, I'm having these repeated nightmares of drowning, like I'm having weird accidents whenever I go near water, feeling this really big depression, and then suddenly my fisherman spirit showing up, that might be a divination tell all its own to be like, oh, you have like weird water spirit things going on. Like we need to address that and clean you off, and the spirit's gonna help you do it.
Absolutely.
And then even more granularly, how do we mark a working if, we figured something out in the past, like we put all the puzzle pieces together and it really worked for a querent. And then we see those same cards coming up again. It's like, okay, cool. Let's just go straight for what worked in the past. And then this is how we start building up our own corpus and vocabulary. So it kind of gets to as well, if the solution's directly identified in the cards, if you're seeing every image in front of you of the oracle deck of people bathing or things being underwater, now we know to take a bath. Um,
Mhm, mhm. It really is that literal sometimes, and often is.
yeah.
Yeah, like, so, like, when we ask, like, is the solution directly identified in the cards, that can also just be in the absence of things, like you were saying. I really like in beans, this like, if I notice that there's not a single, let's say, fire element in the entire, like, reading, and I'm reading it in the elemental style, like, that automatically is like, okay, I can immediately tell a person not only what's missing on an emotional level and, like, but on a practical level in their spiritual practice. Like, if this is a like, if I'm redrawing the chart to figure out, like, what do they need, like, that is already, abundantly clear. There's not enough force to move the thing into a creation, into existence. There's not enough passion, there's not enough, like, intensity, there's not enough ideas, there's not enough, like, willpower, right? Like, all that stuff is missing, and so there's stagnation, and we can see that in, like, everything else. Like, there's the waters have become murky because of all the earth elements, but it's not actually, like, nourishing the earth, it's actually just stagnating, it's becoming muddy. We need the fire to get things going.
And really with, a lot of this, it ends up being a mode of just seeking balance and seeking harmony between everything. Unless, for certain workings, you need to jack something up to 11. Like take all the fiery correspondence and put it in here to really light a fire under someone's ass. Like out of if they're in a long period of
Mhm,
stagnation, or, really bump up the earth element in something if someone is like really ungrounded, and kind of being able to pull on this more humoral correspondence, doctrine of sympathies layer of things. I know we talk about this with Maria quite a bit anytime that she's on as well, from kind of a more Chinese metaphysical and like broadly East Asian metaphysical context. So, wherever you're working, all these methodologies tend to converge on, okay, what do we do to create harmony, balance, resolve this reading? Sometimes with Lenormand, I'm like, what do I wish was here that would make this reading look good? If there's suddenly like a bunch of travel and it just sucks the whole time, I'm like, God damn, I want flowers here. I want child here. I want, maybe the signifier of like a romantic partner here. I want the writer here. Like I want something that is someone having fun. Like if you have to travel, you might as well make a trip of it. You might as well make a vacation of it. That type of thing.
Totally. Mhm.
And so if I'm part of that deduction is I'm like, what do I wish is in these cards? If this divination, if I wanted to be the most idyllic, thing possible for this query, if I wanted to tell them you have no problems, I'm refunding you, get out of here. Um, then what cards do I wish were there? And if I wish for 3 cards to be there, then I'm going to take those 3 cards and start thinking, okay, what does a working built out of those look like? Lenormand example. Ironically, I cut directly to flowers. It's like flower, scythe, birds. You need to reap the rewards of what you've been doing. You need to bring some refreshment in. You need to go have a kiki with your friends. Go talk to the grandma in the village and get all the gossip out. You gotta really pick up the flower and take it home with you on the side of the road, that type of thing. Simultaneously, this could be a whole lot of other readings, like you said, very simple thing with that question could be 5 readings. Um, so it's that discernment of context and kind of telling the story that continues and resolves the grand story.
Beautifully said. There's also the more you do, the more you have like a bank of things where like nowadays like my brain just automatically sees a certain combination of beans, so I'm like, it's got to be this. The Hatma is this, the Tehir is this, it's got to be this. And I check with the clients, like, yep, it is. And it's interesting. Sometimes you get clusters of clients that have similar problems, kind of in batches. And I'm just like, I swear I just gave this reading recently. So I very much relate to that. But even for yourself, let's just say this is not for clients, this is just for you. One thing that I really like about like divining for like techniques, divining for skills, divining for working. Sometimes the spirits will be like, it's cultivation. It's cultivating this attitude. It's cultivating this practice. I had one that was just like, don't add anything new until you've made good on the things that you're supposed to do daily or weekly. So like, and I looked at my calendar and I was like, fuck, I fell off from something that I normally do every Friday. Or like normally I have this thing that like the first of the month I always do this. Or the Thursday before the full moon I do this, and I should really do that. And so it was a good reminder for me to be just like, okay, get on track. And you're right. Like, who am I to go in front of them and ask for something new when I'm not even keeping up with my daily quests somewhere. And so once I got back on track, I was like, do I need something new? And I was like, no. Sometimes like something was identified, and then something else took care of it. That happens for me. Even the teachers, right? They read for me and they're like, we should do this. I'm like, great. And then by the time it's time for us to do that, I've remedied that exact situation with a different spirit and another system without even realizing it. Like the initial thing that was being elected was resolved. So I would do once you've kind of done your work, I would not necessarily divine on like, hey, what's the outcome? What's the outcome? That could like jinx it too, in the sense of like you're over analyzing it and causing some kind of rift, and maybe your spirits are thinking you don't trust them. But what you can do is you can be like, great, like what do I do now for myself? Like, and it can be very quickly like let it go and do this instead.
Yeah, I think that's always the good structure of like even to practice this stuff. Like, what can I do for myself? The exercise I always give is what is something that I can do right now that would make my life better? Pull 3 cards and see what happens. That's generally where I start. I'm building out these workings. Like, I would say start with what you know and map what you know technique wise onto what you know how to read. And so saying like, let's say under my sorcerer's tool belt, I can make a charm bag for every planet. I can do a candle working for every planet. And I know how to call on, 4 particular spirits to work in the way that they work. And I know what that is. Map that onto a deck of cards, you know, like if you have, 14 possible workings, then let's put those on each suit. Let's throw the jokers in there and make the math work out. Um, so if you're pulling, 1, 3, 5 cards, it's like, okay, this person, there's a strong indication that, Jupiter's here speaking. We need to, bring up some Jupiters. Is it charm bag? Is it the candle working? Do we make a balm? Do we make a bath? Do we make a incense? Any of these possible techniques. Do we make a powder? And then even just confirming like yes, no oracles, I find are really helpful for like spell work because at each given point, you can just be like, are we good? Yes. Okay, cool. Are we good? Yes, but it's a little wonky. Okay, let's take something out with a different thing back in. Is it good now? Yes, great. And then you move forward from there.
Absolutely, yeah. Just that little check-in at the end is nice. Like, I always caution against over divining, but these check-ins don't even have to be with divination tools. They could just be with like psychically pinging your spirit, be like, "We're good. Okay, we're good." And it should feel good in your body. It should feel like they're not, like, trying to draw something out of you to be like, "No, no, no, pay attention. If you can't hear us, throw some cards."
Yeah, totally. It's one of the things of like a really important skill in any art, especially magic, is know when it's done.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, just know when to say it's done. Like put the paintbrush down and just have kind of the will and have the daring to be like, this is complete. It's gonna do what it's gonna do. And I've crossed my T's, I've dotted my I's, I've, signed the back of it and sent it on its way.
Mhm. So what are some exercises that you recommend to folks? Maybe they're trying to like practice a little bit. Maybe they want to start kind of seeing if like they can do things when it's not an emergency, when it's not urgent. They can just be like, okay, well, I want to put up some protection charms. I want to beef up my money. I want to beef up some things. It's not urgent. It's not like, oh God, I'm in some shit right now. But I do want to improve my circumstances, and I want to make sure that like maybe I'm making a dreaming amulet to make myself dream on command, and you know, have meet spirits and so on and so forth. Like, and they just wanna, like, play around with magic for magic's sake, kind of like, you know, our old friend flipping through the PGM and just landing on something and being like, "That one." What would you, recommend? How can people get started if they wanna do that by designing their own workings?
Yeah, so I love setting that kind of intention, that question of, what is something I can do right now that would make my life better? And then selecting a significator card for yourself. This is a very cartomantic um, example, but really just having through whatever divination system you're doing, having a signifier for you and then putting out kind of a grid of cards or like a box or whatever type of cross or line of stuff that gives you a picture of what's going on in your life. What are the spirits flagging as important? For the example of Lenormand, I would say pull out one of the traditional significators of like a person and then throw, one of the cross spreads around it, cross of four cards and say, okay, each of these four elements is here and needs to be addressed. Same thing if you are, doing a reading specifically for a working. If you want protection, if you want something like that, you can pull out the significator of like the tower or something. That's a bit more, structure, stuff like that, but still throw cards around it. And suddenly, if you're like, okay, birds are coming down, the scythe is coming down, the whip is coming down, clover is coming down. This probably needs to be something sharp and spiky because in these images, there are blades, sharp objects, whips, things like that. Like this talisman needs to have a little bit more bite and it needs to fight like a bird. Like, let's think of what the most aggressive bird species in your areas might be. Is it, hawk? Is it eagle? Is it a particular owl? Is it something like that? And then employing some of that virtue in the working that you're doing, along with, let's say, a couple fibers from like a broom that you've pulled out that are kind of like pointy natural materials. Put in, if there's a sharp grass that's like living in your neighborhood that is otherwise going to be cut down, like kind of really sharp, like sedges and things, even wild forage, bundle those up into there, and then really just give it that structure, give it that bite, and position it somewhere high up in the home. Maybe it's above the front door where people are kind of crossing through, things are entering, things are leaving. Let it prick any misfortune that is going to enter, and let the blade of the scythe harvest only all the blessings that are in the world. So kind of building it out narrative wise like that, just see what handful of cards come down and then tell a story of this talisman. Talk to the talisman as you're making it and tell it the story of its own existence to build out its life in that way. Say, okay, this card is here. It needs to be in the story. This card's here. It needs to be in the story. So with that example, okay, talisman, you are sharp. You are as quick as a whip when it comes to defending me. You like to jump and be ready to all this, but you have the patience, you have the discernment of knowing when to swing the scythe. To conclude, today is the day of the harvest. No matter what's going on, we're going to bring it in right now. Even if I'm embracing something that's doing me harm, jump in the way and sever my own connection to it, like the scythe, severs the connection to whatever's next to it. Have the, ferocity in this defense of these birds hunting, have their senses, have their alacrity, have their acute sight and hearing to be able to detect any hardships and harms that might be coming my way before I'm even aware of them and remove them from my life, prevent them from reaching me before I even know that it has been a problem. So kind of an extended example, but learning to quickly build out stories like that, that you then animate with your magical force, animate with the breath, bring all of these components together, and ask yourself, if you're looking for materia, what in the world tells the story of this card in front of me?
Beautiful. And I love how you could go so literal, like literal, like birds or broom parts, and as well as actually go into like the broader meanings of the cards as well, and be like, what needs to be invoked or banished or changed or
Mhm,
manipulated here, and that's kind of zooming out and reading it in 5 different ways. That's my challenge to myself nowadays as well, is
mhm,
I can I read this in a different way, and not just be on my initial pass, and can I see what else is being said here? And obviously, there's some kinds of divination systems where like it'll be a little bit more about conferring things that you're feeling and hearing, but even then, there'll still be ways that you can read the omens as they come. So
mhm,
really with this, there's this invitation to play, there's this invitation to design, there's this invitation to co-create, to not be afraid to be like, "This is the book. I wanna do something out of this book," like bibliomancy-wise. Give me the best part. Or maybe as opposed to bibliomancy, be like, "Give me a sign that this is a structure I should be looking for, and then when I find it in the book, I will let you know this is what I wanna do. Do you agree?"
mhm.
Because you can always suggest things. You can always be like, "Hey, I'm not even gonna design it, like, I'm gonna tell you. This is what I wanna do. Like, who here will do this with me and help me make sure it works?" And that is also sufficient. But it's
Yeah,
great to just be able to be like, "I want you guys to challenge your spirits to restrict some things, to be like, hey, it's only stuff that I have in the house.' I know we've made that example a few times, but it's underrated. Or it's only things I can have access to in my neighborhood. It's with only plants that grow within 2-mile radius. That's it. I want it walking distance."
yeah, absolutely. It's always the beautiful challenge. Make it work with what you have. What having the perfect materia, having everything in front of you should never be the enemy of, I got a pack of cigarettes, I got a lighter, I got a knife, I got farmer's almanac, I got some matches, I got my deck of cards, and I got the fabric that they were wrapped in when I came in. Let's make three miracles out of this set of tools right now, and not stop working on them until all three of those things have manifested.
Mhm. Love that.
And even thinking about your exercise, I love that, tell 5 different readings. Because I was thinking back on that example, I'm like, all of those cards is also advice. Don't gossip right now. It could be a very
Mhm.
different reading of hold your tongue. Maybe someone's gossiping about you. Get some alum, get some, scissors, put them above your door, that type of thing. Put a nail in a tree with the petition of names that you think are talking shit about you and silence that all up, that type of thing. So with each possible interpretation, I love that you suggest that, 'cause that just has me excited to be like, okay, here are all these different examples that like can come out of even a simple, 3 card spread, 4 card cross, that type of thing.
Mhm, mhm.
So the practice, the homework, do them all.
Beautiful. It's fun, and I really folks, please contribute, let us know what your techniques are, that you're comfortable expressing, or, like, what are your philosophies, ways that you go into it's hard to talk about in some ways because it's so specific to the moment. So we're just talking more about, like, general principles, but maybe when we could give them an example, what is a good example of a way to derive a working for, let's say, good spiritual hygiene? Yeah, something generic like that where, like, talking about it out loud won't fuck it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So just talking through my process, to even begin with, I'm praying and calling upon, like, at the different points of my body and the different people who I know are already in the room, like the magician spirits of the court being like, "Hey, guys, like, I know that you all help with these techniques. I'm looking to derive a way to ensure that there's always spiritual hygiene, that there's refreshment, that there is, making sure that I'm cleaned off and in a good state to be doing these workings, doing these readings. And I'm opening up the divination in front of me, shuffling the cards, thinking hard about the question, and saying, okay, in a line of 5 cards, I'm going to pull these out, and we're going to have to tell the story of a working. Prescribe advice. There is mundane actions to be taking. If there are more sorcerous actions to be taken, describe the working to me in these cards, and we'll mark all of these things. And in the story that comes out, that's how they're told. Because I'm actually talking to spirits, they're being pranksters with me. In the cards that are coming down, and I've very nicely fixed my own significator in the center of this.
Love that, love that.
Yeah, so spiritual hygiene wise, this is starting off with a reminder of be in your power always. Like, know what you can do, know what you can't do, if only to guide what you should be learning to do. This is saying sometimes the best defense and the best way to cleanse off is almost like this Pazuzu approach of just know that you're going to be the scariest thing in the room. And if you're not, try to cultivate that and
Mm,
bring kind of your spirits forward. If you're noticing a bunch of gunk on you, if you're noticing a bunch of weirdness on you, just call on those kind of spirits that you know pack a punch, like the bodyguards of the court, and really assemble something with them. There's the significator here then of, for me in the symbol set, because it's the key coming down, this is always, passing things through the eyes of keys. If you're looking at it literally, maybe a good spiritual technique would be to, burning matches, passing through the keys, or, with your wax burning kits that just came out, that's something that's coming to mind visually.
mhm,
Um, as a possible cleansing. So practicing that technique or going to someone who knows how to do that and receiving that sort of cleansing would be good here. Or going to the locks and the doors of the house, the different wards that are already existing in the space, the things that give the spirits of mine keys to come and go as they please into this home. And really refreshing those objects, making sure that the things that are coming in are actually allowed to be in here, and the things that are going out are not taking my blessings with them. And the ambient spirit traffic when this particular combination of cards is coming up is really for me flagging. We need to be looking at what's around. We need to be looking at the spirits that are kind of present in the area. Spiritual cleansing wise, this other combo of cards that's coming up is kind of know what's public, what's private. Um, know what echoing again what is coming into that space, because this card is here, it's giving the key more of that meaning of like, hey, the doors of the house are important here. If something that you want to be closed is open, make sure it's closed. If something that you want to be open is closed, make sure it's open. That type of thing. And so a lot of this is refresh the doors, refresh the windows, refresh existing protections type of thing. So spiritual routine wise, I would even recommend, every once a week, walk through the house, open up all the windows and doors, flush the place out, cleanse everything down. Like if you have a mop bucket, this is a good sign for doing like, beating the walls with different things. Mopping always helps here. But anything that you do, take it outside, throw it at a tree, ground it in that way. Kind of just marking it here, like for the Lenormand enjoyers here. This is Bear Key Tree and Park. So we are immediately talking about strength. We were talking about solutions, kind of tricky mechanical access to things, passageways of things coming in and out. We're talking about stability, anchoring things into the earth, ancestry, taking all the things that are up in the air and actually grounding them into reality. And then we're talking about the division between what is the public and what is the private. So as all these things kind of mesh together, it's saying, okay, throw the windows open. This is the park. Take everything, clean it out, throw it at a tree, get it into the earth. This is tree. Be careful about who's coming in and out, especially if you're going to be opening up all the windows and doors. Make sure that they're closed at the end of it. This is the key. And then with the bear, this is always talking power. This is always talking strength. This is always, you know what to do, so go do it.
hell fucking yes. Thank you for the live demonstration. It wasn't actually in our plan.
Yeah, of course. Always happy to help out.
The
And
spirit of the episode possessed us.
yeah, I love it. I love Lenormand, love reading shit like that and just kind of talking about the vocabulary of, make the story of power, division, and control and magic itself, the grounding and stability and public private divide. Like it's kind of a fun story to tell. Like these are just the cards that were on the deck, and going from there.
Yeah, and you know what? In that way, folks, not only can you get a discounted reading right now during Lent in the form of a Letterman reading for 30 minutes on our website with command.com, you can also have him coach you in Letterman if that is something that you'd like to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely have a now developed curriculum that I've run through with people of, how do I really start teaching? The first thing's always going to be remember the card readings, but if you want to learn how to be like, okay, let's tell the story of these cards, let's, develop these workings, like how do I get from, okay, there are 4 pieces of paper on the table in front of me to, okay, you need to be walking through your house, beating the walls with these different bundles of plants, taking them outside, throwing them at a tree, open all the windows, clean this place out, close it, reset spiritually, and then really cultivate power. Like, let's talk. Because there are a million different ways to mark these things, solve problems, and this is one that I find really works for me.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Kate. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Our cash records for this episode, mine is, Five Ways by Shakewell. I can't believe this wasn't yet on the cash records of the Frightful House playlist. I swear this is one that I feel like I'm constantly, like, memeing about, and I realize I may not have even made a single joke about it in the entire 76 episodes that we've done. It's the 5 ways, the 5 familiars that get summoned and protect Shakewell
Yeah, it's very true.
on his quest to defeat somebody who asked him to get off his lawn.
Yeah, it's I know a guy.
It's a good Tim and Eric sketch is what that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
With a very on the nose cameo.
Mhm. It's pretty accurate to how spirit networking works.
Yeah, it actually it's it's a great music video, go check it out.
So good. Oh man. And then mine of course is Pyramids by Man Man off of the album On Oni Pond, which is for podcast lore enjoyers, one of my favorite albums of all time.
Mhm.
But it is selected for its lyrics of I smash my crystal ball, I burn my tarot cards, I know just what you are.
Oh, hell
Because
yeah.
we want to be so certain in our divination that we don't need this shit anymore. We just know exactly what the problem is and how to fix it. With that, today, our license to depart is a prayer to be said for divination from Corey Hutchinson's 54 Devils, the art and folklore of fortune telling with playing cards.
And this is such a great one.
Ancestors, blessed saints, guardians, and guides, please bless this tool of divination. Bless it that it might open doors into insight. Bless my hands as they turn the cards, that they may always find what you will them to find. Bless my eyes as they read the cards, that they may always see the meanings you reveal. Bless my ears, that they may hear your guiding words. Bless my lips, that I speak your meanings clearly. Bless my mind and heart, that they remain open to receiving your wisdom through this simple tool. Amen.
We are now in double int.
Woo!